Hey, that's pretty official looking, isn't it? Hi, Bob here. And today we were supposed to interview Jack Douglas, the amazing producer of Aerosmith, John and Yoko, that Double Fantasy album, Cheap Trick, and so many more. He had a last-minute family issue, for which my fingers crossed, pray for everything is good, and we'll try to reschedule for next week. So in the meantime, I got a show for you. Joining us now, my friend and partner for so many years, although for a couple of those decades we couldn't stand each other, Zip Fell. Uh-oh. We don't have any audio, Zip. You were there before, my friend. Check and see if you're muted. Also joining us is Andrew Rivers. Your audio's working?
Hello.
All right, good.
Good to see you, Bob. I'm going to do the sound effects now because, bling, zip.
Yeah.
All right.
Zip.
Am I here? Yes.
Yep, you're there
Can
now.
you hear me? Okay. All right.
Yes.
All right.
Do you still have that dial-up CompuServe internet? Because
What do you mean, AOL? I'm a proud member of AOL. Absolutely.
you are. Okay. This week, is there any news? Does anybody have any news this week?
As a
I don't
medical
look at
development?
official news. Yeah.
No, about us or about anything that's going on.
Are you fishing for a compliment on the induction? Is that what you're saying?
Zip's honesty is impeccable.
Congratulations.
Well
Hall
deserved.
of Fame.
Yes, well deserved, I might add.
Shut up.
I'm sorry.
So, no.
Was that what you were referring to? Come on.
We discussed this ahead of time, but that's okay. Yes. So because we don't have a celebrity today, I said, well, who could we interview that's famous?
And it's Bob.
And Andrew.
Oh, sure.
Sure. So, Zip, you're the host.
I'm the host. Okay. So I'm interviewing you two.
Yeah.
Now, for those who haven't heard, and I don't understand possibly how you couldn't have heard if you're on social media in any way, shape, or form, Bob got a well-deserved, will be getting a well-deserved induction into the Radio Hall of Fame, correct? Did I get it correct?
You did.
Yes. Well-deserved. And let me stress that.
Yeah.
It's a lifetime's worth of effort, seriously.
Well, my dad always said I would get what I deserved.
You know, I didn't know any of the other names that were included with you, and but when I posted it, the people who hadn't heard of you were like, "Well, he's in good company." So
Yeah. Very, very brilliant broadcasters. Nina Totenberg, top of the craft. John DeBella, legendary Philadelphia guy. And there was one person who didn't make it in who I'm a huge fan of, and you know who that is.
Would he be a former competitor of ours in the Boston area? That would be Charles Laquadera, the Big Mattress, as
Charles
it were.
called his show The Big Mattress, which was the most wonderful visual of any, maybe the best morning show name ever. And his show and his station, WBCN, were the inspiration for that movie and that song, FM, No Static at All. Remember the movie where people barricade the doors and lock themselves in the station to protest management?
Yeah, right.
Andrew's on TikTok. He doesn't know anything about the movie. But anyway, a dear...
is this the guy who rescued the Iran hostages or whatever?
Yes,
is that
is. That's the same guy, yeah. So anyway, I had this weird dream that, that we would both go there together, and he already knows how much I was a fan of his show. Really inspirational. For me, it's weird. It's wonderful. Winning is so much better than saying it was an honor just to be considered, because I had that speech for so many times. But
that's right next to that condom in your wallet. Just both been in there for several years.
Right. Making a dent in that flap. Did you ever have a condom in your wallet, or do you just know these old guy references?
Just an old guy reference.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of old guy references, television was video in the early days. I mean, that was the game. So who were some of the the stars of yesteryear that you'll be joining.
Oh,
Our-
oh.
Which the names will mean nothing to Andrew, but that's
Well, perhaps instead of name, I should do it in story form, because I think the story will mean something. Because I know this about Andrew. When he was young, he had idols too. He had comedians. There was one comedian whose his catchphrase was, "That's your sign." Remember that guy? Who was that?
Bill Engvall.
Bill Engvall.
Here's your sign.
Right. And so, Andrew, you understand, like, these people that initially inspire you, they stay with you, right, for your whole career.
Sure.
And so when I was a kid,
until you meet them, and then you go, "Oh, you're on."
Is he not a nice guy?
Oh, I'm just teasing. I'm just
Okay, just teasing.
The old saying, "Never meet your idols." You know.
Yeah, he's talking about other idols.
Yeah.
So when I was a kid, I was in the Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts. I was never fondled, by the way. Although there was one guy
They knew you were a talker, so
yes, that's right. Anyway, when I was in the late Cub Scouts or early Boy Scouts, they let us camp out overnight, and that's a pretty big deal.
That's a red flag right there.
Yes, the aforementioned problems they and the Catholic Church have had over the years. But no, that's not where this story is going. And I would go on these Boy Scout campouts with my friends Bob Baker, Frank Toohill, and I think this was before we started smoking pot, just for Andrew's reference. So I think we were pretty young, naive, and had all whatever wits we had them about us. And I had a transistor radio with me since the age of 5, wherever I went. And this transistor radio on these campouts was used to listen to a storyteller on WOR New York. His name is Gene Shepard. Does that mean that name probably doesn't mean anything to you guys?
I'm aware of Gene Shepard.
You've
Sure,
heard of him, yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
His talk show came on at 10:15 on WOR and ran 45 minutes to 11 o'clock. So he had only a 45-minute show, and each show he told a story, sometimes from start to finish. Seemingly off the top of his head, but of course he prepared. And there were stories from his childhood. There were sometimes just commentary about current events. And you were glued to the radio when Gene Shepard was on, because he knew how to telegraph that something was coming and then say, side direct over here. All of those skills that a good storyteller has that I'm not exhibiting right now. The show would come on with the William Tell Overture. You know that song. Dun, 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 dun. And he would be, "Oh, kids, welcome." And I was a kid. And I used to sneak a radio into the bed at 10:15 to listen. "Oh, yeah, I'm going to bed only at 10 o'clock, even in high school. Yeah, I'm going to bed now. Gene Shepard's on." It was appointment listening. Some of the stories he told, well, he wrote a book called In God We Trust, All Others Pay Cash, which gives you a little bit of an idea of his philosophy. One show that I just can't get out of my mind, 2 of them actually. One where he talks about famous men and how men build their careers their whole lives, and then they reach this point, which is their pinnacle of success. And from that on, it's all downhill. And so his theory was, you know what? At that point, when you've done it and you've got it all, you should be bronzed. And then they should just bronze you, make a bronze statue of you, and you should quit.
Is that why you retired 10 years ago?
No, I still was a little late for the bronze. But anyway, another show he did once, he was talking about the Beatles. Most of his shows were stories of his childhood, but I can't remember those. He was talking about the Beatles, and he said, "I don't get it." He was like, "This music, it's flash in the pan," just the way we would talk about pop music. He said, "It's hooky, it's got a beat, but 5-10 years from now, no one's going to have heard of these guys." Just little things that stick with you from radio people. And even if they're wrong, it's still fun.
Yeah.
So Gene Shepard is in
What's interesting is like
Yeah.
the new generation makes music for their generation. So of course the old people don't like it because it's not for them. So
Yes. Yeah.
it's fascinating that happens at all levels, you know?
Yeah, it does. And it's a recurring theme, by the way, although it could be argued that today's pop music is pretty syrupy and mass produced and might not be as big. For example, like the 80s rock is not as big as the 70s rock in terms of longevity.
Well, Taylor Swift is selling out arenas. I think, you know, it's as poppy and as toned down as, I mean, I don't know. You know, again, but it means more to the people that it means that to. So it's hard to argue because the clip we played of my joke a couple weeks ago where, you know, all my lady friends are like, this is the best music ever. Yeah. She's Jesus. And you're like, it doesn't mean anything to me, but
she's girl Jesus. There's no doubt about that. That's
yeah.
And do you know that last night, I'll get back to Gene Shepard, but did you know that last night Keith bought tickets for Leanne and our granddaughters, Hazel and Georgia, to see Taylor Swift on, I guess, StubHub at the last minute, because there's this thing you can do where you wait till it's almost showtime. And then sometimes the ticket prices drop. And so they went, and I'll get to hear about it. Back to Gene Shepard. I'm about 14, 15 years old. We have a high school radio station, which I founded because no one would hire me, and I needed a radio station. I wrote a letter to Gene Shepard in New York, and I asked him, could I please interview you for my high school radio station? Just out of the blue. And you do this. You went up, Andrew, you went up to all the comics that you admired when they would come through town and you got them to sign your book. Well, I was a little bit like that. Anyway, I wrote this letter and an engineer, manager, somebody wrote back and said, Mr. Shepard would be happy to speak with you on Tuesday, 11 a.m. at the studios of WOR in New York. Oh, you cannot use any of WOR's equipment because we are a union shop. Can you bring your own tape recorder? Well, these days, all of us have a multimedia content creation device. Back then, it meant I had to bring a little Wallensack reel-to-reel recorder with one of those microphones like this.
A lapel microphone. Yes.
Well, this was just like a Radio Shack deal. Remember those little mics?
Sure. Yeah, little circular ones. Yes.
About this big circular thing. So I did.
I think they still have that mic at Giggles, actually.
They do have that one. Several of your comedy clubs. So I took the mic in, and I nervously took the elevator up to the umpteenth floor, and here was this guy, like my idol. And we sat down and we talked for 45 minutes. All I remember is that it was wonderful and that I brought the tape back and played it on my high school radio station. So he's in the Radio Hall of Fame. And you know, it's from Abbott and Costello to Wolfman Jack. And it's very, very much an honor. And I think a lot of it is because of the Twisted Tunes. Because in terms of fame, they're played in every market in the world. Okay, in the United States, at least.
I remember being on Christmas vacation in Hawaii, and you would tune into local radio just to see, you know, what the vibe was and who the DJs were and what was going on. And they played one of your Christmas songs. And then I think you called first, but you drove to the station and just, hey, that's my song. And then,
could you play more from that album?
Yeah, exactly.
Honestly, I used to just get the biggest thrill out of being anywhere and, you know, having a song come on. But I'm a fan, you know, really insecure sometimes about my stuff, but I'm a fan of like whoever I'm working with or whatever I'm doing. Like when Seattle grunge music was big, if I flew to Baltimore and Alice in Chains, Pearl Jam, Jimi Hendrix were the first three songs I heard on the radio, I was like proud for Baltimore. So it's kind of like rooting for the Seahawks kind of thing. It's fun. Anyway, it's a tremendous honor. This wouldn't have happened without Zip, And without Zip, maybe Andrew wouldn't have happened. I mean, we've screwed up the timing. Would have been a completely different game.
I don't follow that one. Wait a minute.
Oh no. First,
Wasn't there a story about there's an old it's been brought up on several podcasts about
Swapping?
You being in the other room or something.
Well, Zip was there when I met my bride, your mother.
Right. And then he tried to steal her from you or something like that.
He did.
Boy, I'll tell you.
He definitely did. Well,
this story is getting passed down generations.
It is really out of control.
We were at Rick Davis's house, and I think we were house sitting, and we invited 2 girls over. And I'm dumb enough that, and I believe I've passed that down, that I don't have a preconceived notion about what's going to happen. Like,
right.
if I don't like a girl, actually, it was usually she didn't like me. But again, these 2 girls.
Thanks for that, Gene, too. I appreciate that. Pass that one down.
These girls were Lisa and another gal named Patty, and Zip actually had a terrible breakup with a girl named Patty. It took him years to get over it. He didn't have as much.
I'm still
practice.
not over.
Yeah. Are you still? You still?
Oh, I'm just joking, but it was painful.
It helps if you find her on Facebook and she's really old and fat.
Well, I've talked to her many times.
Do you stalk her on Facebook?
Oh, no.
All right. And I didn't mean that anyway.
No,
Actually,
I know.
the funny thing is when I do connect with people from high school on Facebook, I just love them, and I can only think of them. I even say this: we're still 15 years old. I mean, just nostalgia is an amazing thing. So, so Zip did on this particular occasion go into Rick's bedroom, as I recall, with this gal named Pat.
Oh man!
Look, if you have evidence to the contrary or a different narrative.
Oh, Jesus.
You don't have a legal team like Trump saying, that did not happen. That's crazy. This is a witch hunt. Anyway.
It's selective memory, I guess, at this point.
Well, I selected it very carefully. And I was out on the couch. I wouldn't just take a girl to a bedroom. I think Andrew has some of this. I would want to see if it's going to be real. Not that I had high moral standards. Don't get me wrong. Dependent on the day. But anyway, I'm sitting out with this girl, Lisa, and we did start making out. And it was, I wouldn't call it I don't even know if this is still a term.
Heavy petting?
Heavy petting, yeah. No one says that today, right, Andrew?
I don't think that those terms are used, no.
Well, that's a lot of malarkey if those terms are not used anymore.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, what do you have?
It's not really petting. It's more grabbing in my experience.
You have first, second, third, and fourth base, right? Though you still talk.
Sure. Yes, we got the bases. They get a little mixed up, but
How do they get mixed up?
Well, the intervals are different for everybody's own
skill level.
Yeah.
Yes.
Everybody's got their own currency and what they value it as, and so
So your third base might be someone else's stealing home?
Sure. Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Well, I was at I believe second base, and Zip comes out with this canary eating grin on his face, his feathers sticking out. And he looks at me and he goes, "Hey, how you guys doing? Want to switch?"
I have absolutely no recollection. If this was after the breakup, I no doubt was imbibing heavily.
It was after the breakup, and we were all imbibing. Right. Yes.
All right.
At that point, my previous story was pre-pot and booze. This was during all of that. And by the way, the only reason I can say it without doubt is that Lisa was there. And,
And you got the girl. So, I mean,
I got the girl, but
you won.
But all truth be told, Zip is the better looking guy. Back then, perhaps even now, if he'd get a better camera.
Allow me to point out something too, that you gave me my first break in radio, if you recall. through Bo Bowman, may he rest in peace. Sent me to Marston's Army Navy to sit in the window and sell garden hose.
Bo Bowman was a friend of ours, a good friend, but who was into the, what did you call that stuff?
Well, I think it was meth, quite frankly.
It was speed. Yeah. I mean, he was like, and, but a great guy. And I hired him on the radio. I hired Johnny Dodge. And Johnny went on to have a big radio career as a programmer, classical music stations, major markets, was on Sirius XM. And Zip was the drummer in his band, which was signed to Atlantic Records. There was always a music component to everything, you know, Twisted Tunes and a radio show. There was always a music component to how I would meet people. Zip was hired by me to do what shift in New Hampshire?
It was a notch down from Marston's Army Navy. It was the polka show on Sunday morning. Archie Perrone, was it?
He was a weekend air talent who would sit while some guy with an accordion on Sunday morning from 6 to 7 would go with
really bad halitosis. He had terrible bad breath too, and it was awful.
We all know someone with predictably horrible bad breath. Who likes to lean into you and you go, well,
but it was a break.
I knew I wanted to go to a major market and do bigger radio. And so I went to the NAB convention in Florida and I asked my general manager, I said, can I have Friday off? Why? I want to go to the NAB convention in Florida. He was like, no, you can't. And so I didn't take the day off. But I still flew out after the show. And somehow the owner of the station got wind that I was looking for another job. I'm in Miami. I'm talking to people at WAF. The phone rings and it's Zip. Or maybe I was checking on you. I can't remember which, whether you called me or not. And by the way, those days when the phone rings, it rings in your hotel room. Not in your shirt pocket. And anyway, I said, Zip, how's everything going back there? And Zip went, okay. That's accurate.
It is accurate, yes. It was an uncomfortable call. Well, I don't remember exactly, but he was putting pressure on me to, you know, I did not politic for the gig at all.
So I basically, Zip said, well, Chris Dante's pretty pissed. That was the owner of the station. And I said, why? He said, well, he found out that you were in Florida, in Miami for the NAB. And he's a little pissed about it. And I said, well, did he fire me? And Zip went, well, kinda. And that's when he had it all come gushing out that I didn't ask for it. I had nothing to do with it. And Zip got my job.
So he tried to steal your woman, and then he stole your job.
My job, exactly.
Oh, this is completely out of control. There's some truth to some of this.
There's some truth to some of this. Well, isn't that the case for every news channel
these
days? So as close as you're going to get.
It's how you frame it. That's
so
true.
I realized when I was in Florida that I was fired. And at the very same time, I was making friends with the WAAF people. And I would, within weeks, get hired to be just a weekend fill-in guy. Just basically, you know,
quite a step up in the broadcast world, though. Those two sets of call letters.
Big station, yes. And long story short, I just kissed a lot of Fanny in Worcester and worked my Fanny off, and eventually got the morning show job as an interim morning show host because they were looking for somebody. I mean, it was pretty straightforward. You're really not the guy. No. We're looking for someone, what's the word I'm looking for?
Talented.
And so I was on in the interim, and I was trying to figure out how to do a radio show full time. And this story I've told several times. I went to this place called Lizer Sound, a big electronics store, kind of like what was the Crazy Eddie guy in New York, the one of these crazy prices stores. And we got a VCR so I could record and listen to Johnny Carson every day, because I figured if I'm going to be a show host, Like I'd been a disc jockey, reading liner cards, introducing songs, all that super creative stuff. And
But you got to host and yeah.
I had to talk to people.
Yeah.
And
you had to be warm and engaging, which isn't coming natural to you, you know?
No, it didn't. And the other thing that Johnny had was his self, I call it self-defecation, but self-deprecation, where, if you show your vulnerability, it warms you up to people. And I liked that. And just the mannerisms of talking to people. So at that point, I was on the air with this news gal who's brilliant, went on to have a massively huge, successful career in Boston named Lana Jones. But, she didn't like my probably goofy,
sophomoric
humor. But
yes.
Literally, that was the job description in those days. And so she got another job. And I hired Zip. Yeah, the guy who stabbed me in my back tried to take my woman.
Jeez.
But we always had fun together, and so that's the story of how we. And seriously, Zip is Keith's godfather. I'm not sure.
You don't trust him around me, though?
Well, no, you came later, so we gave you to somebody else. What was it, Jonas? Who's your godfather? Do you even know? Religion plays such a key role in all of our lives. Spirituality does, but not so much for the organized church stuff. So at any event, I mean, this is how important Zip is. When I say we wouldn't be here, not only did we first forge on-air morning show chemistry and win in the ratings, enough so that people from various other markets tried to hire us away, but Zip also really, if you've ever seen a movie about time travel, I would not have the same son if Zip wasn't there, because everything would be different. The universe would be different.
Yeah. Is there another city that you almost chose over Seattle? Alternate history while we're going down different timelines and different universes?
Well, the two of us, we had
we were
L.A.
We were offered to L.A., Sacramento.
I don't know. Did we? I don't know if we got offered.
No, we were interviewed and we were hungover, and they never called us back. No, seriously. Come on. I invite you to question the authenticity of it.
All right. No, that was
true.
Poor interviewing skills for sure.
And by the way, the people who got that gig were Mark and Brian in Los Angeles, very famous morning show, and they made the right call. We were clearly not ready. So that was one other station, and
KOME.
KOME. This was a radio station in San Francisco, and it had, just to give you an idea how the cancel culture has changed. I hate that word, so I just used it. But how it has changed what we can and can't say. KOME. Their bumper stickers said, big KOME, and it had this white splat on it, and it called it the cum spot on your dial. Seriously.
Wow.
Yes!
No wonder we turned out so terrible. We need to protect these children from evil bumper stickers and,
But back then in radio, by the way, that's how you'd get famous, Andrew.
Sure,
You would piss off.
Taking chances.
You would piss off Tipper Gore. And what was that families group, that religious group that went after Howard Stern so harsh? Some kind of big organization, a church organization with a ton of money. And if you could get news headlines about how this show is so shocking, your ratings would skyrocket, and then the station couldn't fire you.
It's the same way with comedy. Now, like I talk about this too, where I'm like, if you hate something, stop. Like there's a comedian who someone threw a beer can at her face while she was on stage, and then she picked it up and chugged it, and then went viral, and then she got on Jimmy Kimmel, and now she's selling out theaters, and it's like, if you hate something, shut up about it, because you're just telling.
You're just
telling everyone.
Yeah. Is she good, by the way?
She's she does well, I think. Okay. I haven't seen a ton, but
I mean, here's the thing. You get a break like that, and it's wonderful. But if you don't
Right.
rise to the occasion, it's
Sure.
yeah, you're going to be a YouTube trivia question, right?
I mean, not necessarily anymore, because if you have an online following, as long as you make them happy, you know, everything now is direct to consumer. The labels don't matter. The Tonight Show doesn't matter. Netflix's numbers are way down.
Right.
It's literally, if you can post on those reels and the people that like it, then you can do whatever you want.
Right.
As
words, if you're-
evidenced by my career, you know.
Yeah, if you're a rotting piece of meat and you have the ability to draw flies, that's an audience.
Chris Kattan is still touring comedy clubs. Jeremy Piven sells out comedy clubs. Stormy Daniels did comedy club nights at times. Our business is just, oh yeah. She was headlining comedy. If you can get people out, someone will offer you the door money so that they can sell those people $12 margaritas or whatever.
As my dad used to say, put fannies in the seats.
Yes.
I still like Fanny. I think it should make a comeback. I think we should all try to be more polite as a society to each other. Seriously, I do. I think.
Yeah.
I think that's what the world's missing.
Good luck getting that message out there.
Well, I know.
As we've learned, the moderate, reasonable discussion really catches fire on the internet, you know?
And that's part of the problem. And the other part of the problem is that
You get 100-ish downloads every time? Yeah.
100 or so. Actual news, like where reporters are hired and they have to verify stories, and those stories are vetted, but there's also a legal department, you say the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times, that is worried about libel if you do libel somebody. So those kind of publications all require a paid subscription. And between Spotify and Netflix and Paramount Plus, I don't have any money left over to be informed. It's kind of how people are. And besides, I get all the news I want for free on Facebook and TikTok and Twitter. Oh, I'm sorry.
My
X.
neighbor Bob, he knows what he's talking about with this vaccine stuff. I trust him, you know?
Exactly. So that is the way it is now. And people just don't realize it. I mean, they really think that the basket of newsy things that they chose is really keeping them informed. And what it's doing is keeping them.
The problem is, too, Facebook has a news tab where you can look at articles. And so, you know, it's the same way, like, you don't eat in your bedroom. You've got to associate different things, right? They tell you not to put a TV in your bedroom. They tell you all those things that we don't listen to. But, yeah. So
the house should still be in the backyard, folks. I think it's the point of it. Change is always bad. So, yes. So it's an amazing time. I do think that out of all this rubble will come good stuff, though, because I think that people eventually like, hey, wait a minute. You know,
well, the boomers are starting to die off, so we have a chance at reclamation. And
that's our gift to you.
Yes,
Dying
enjoy.
off. No, seriously. I mean, not me particularly wishing to go first.
No,
But when the bad ones who are on the other side from me politically go,
Yeah,
I go,
yeah.
thank you, God. Yes.
fuck them. I'm not bad. Yeah.
So, anyway, it's.
I mean, that's why we have to elect 80-year-old presidents, because you guys make up a majority of the voting population, you know. So,
Let me ask myself if that's true. Yeah.
I mean, it's just a theory. I mean,
Well,
you
they're
know,
brand names, and
Yeah.
actually these days, since it does not matter who the president is, who the candidate is, the story will always be the same.
yeah.
The other side is trying to destroy our country. And that phrase goes for deep in Republicans as well as deep in Democrats. They're destroying our country. And I love, by the way, exploring this with people, because what's clear is that they've chosen it's like choosing your food. They're on a diet of fast food. This is fast news. It's usually bullet points. And to them, you know, it's like we're also rooting for a sports team. Our team is the best. A friend of mine says actually political parties now, the hardcore for either side, they're cult members. Because even if you prove their cult leader said something wrong, they come to the cult leader's defense. And this works for Trump, but it also works for Biden's laptop. I mean, or anti-vax articles that were stricken from media because they didn't toe the official line. But having lived through a bunch of presidents now, I mean, even when things are going great with a president, if you tune into a particular cable channel on the other side, the sky is falling. Like President Obama was, I knew people who were like, he's a scourge. We must rid ourselves of Obama. He's destroying this. He's preventing the recovery, which is going so well, from going even higher. That was the argument, because like the stock market went up so much during his years, and they still said he was destroying the economy. And I thought, wow, if you can do that, you could probably have some guy who bangs hookers, pays them off, shoots someone on Fifth Avenue, has an insurrection, and still is your favorite guy.
You were so perceptive. You were ahead of your time.
Yeah, but I am.
I remember that podcast. You were like, I bet there's going to be a guy.
Yeah.
I know it. I see it.
I see it. I alone can tell you what's going to happen.
The chosen one.
Yeah, but to your point, I forget which one of you made this, though. It's just the way it is. It's crazy, but we can't know everything. I mean, when I go to my doctor, I pretend like I've researched this, researched that, and I'm trying to ask a smart question. In the end, I go, "You're the guru," because I don't.
But even doctors are. What's fascinating too is doctors are just more educated guessing.
Yes,
they're not. It's not an exact science there either.
So are comedians, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I have an educated guess that this will be funny. Right? And when you try a joke.
Yeah.
I would. Oh, by the way, the other big thing, and by the way, thank you for the Radio Hall of Fame thing. It's wonderful. It's very humbling also.
You only had to bring it up 7 times, but yeah.
Thinking about all the reasons I don't deserve it. And apparently,
hey, did anything happen recently to anybody on this show? Anybody want to bring anything up?
Well, really, I was baiting you too, Andrew.
Oh, sure.
These past 2 nights, on Friday and Saturday night, Andrew recorded his next comedy special, which is called Hey Beautiful.
Hello, beautiful.
Oh, hello, beautiful. Excuse me.
Sure. Now, funny story. I don't even know if you're aware of this, but that is, in a way, dedicated to you.
Oh.
You, I don't want to ruin the closing joke of the special, but I noticed that you and Mom, whenever you see Mom just randomly, you go, "Hey, cutie." And it's so sweet because I know you guys hate each other. And so I thought if we can get these two people that don't like each other, but they're still kind to each other, if we can all do that, then the world will be a better place. So, it's just a thing I picked up. I started saying it to my friends and to just to people that I care about, and it really, people like being lied to. So, now I just say it to I say it to my roommate, the janitor at Chipotle. It doesn't matter. It just, everyone gets a hello,
and by
beautiful.
The way, but you've discovered a really interesting thing about human nature. Nobody goes, they all go, oh, right?
Yeah. They just go, oh, cool.
Oh. I remember when I first discovered that, maybe a week or 2 ago, that it was longer than that, but that you don't have to actually feel a compliment to give it to somebody. There's an expression in the 12-step organizations, of which Zip and I may or may not be members, that you fake it till you make it.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're not good at giving compliments, just force yourself to. and then it'll start to become second nature, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So anyway, that's the name, and it was.
Hello, beautiful.
When
Yes,
did you start saying "Hey, cutie"? To like, is that just been a thing for a long time, or did that grow on you? Or
no, I've done it since I first hoped.
Yeah.
Zip would leave the room, and I might.
Good callback. Good callback.
Yeah. I did not get past second base that night, by the way. I really don't believe in third on a first visit with somebody, unless I'm really, there's the intoxication factor, and the desperation factor, which is on a pendulum a little bit. But yes, hey, beautiful. Well, I think that I think you're on to the secret of what the world needs, actually, Andrew, and I don't think it's going to come from cable news stations. I think several things have to happen for us to right the ship. One, as you mentioned, Zip and I have to die. It's inevitable.
We're making arrangements for that as we speak.
But keep in mind that Fox News and MSNBC both know that, and they are currently grooming young children to become the future, extremists, because they need that drama to sell ratings. But no, there has to be a sense. I mean, I've seen fads come and go. Whether it's hula hoops, where's the beef, or disco. Let's say when it comes to news, like we're in the heart of disco right now. It's the Saturday Night Fever it's crap. It'll someday be nostalgic for people. And disco is kind of interesting. I would see it now only because it's like that food you only eat once a year. It's fine. It's good. But what has to happen, I think, has to come from the ground up. I think it has to organically occur to people through their friends. The same way you got your Netflix password that you stole from somebody. Somebody had to give it to you. And it has to be passed around that, hey, we're all being used by these social media sites. It's happened a little bit to Facebook. Facebook has gotten less cool because everyone's like, okay, I got it. I'm the product. You're gathering all of my information. Artificial intelligence computers are analyzing it so that you can manipulate me into buying stuff, or even who knows what other evil will come.
But it's like the Matrix to me. It's the Matrix metaphor. It's like, well, if you know it's fake, like if you know Facebook is fucking you, fuck Facebook back. Like use it, like use this tool to do good instead of, people are like social media is evil. And it's like, well, all you do is reply to mean comments. Facebook's going to be like, of course you like that. We're going to show you more of that.
Right, exactly. So how do you, so when you say,
so you just like pictures of models' butts, and then every day you check your phone and it's like, what a great day. It's just a beautiful sunrise.
A better place. No, I thought you had it because the way to actually hurt them is to not participate and do different things instead. But it's also to just, and this is how it has to happen, one-on-one, people to people have to basically, like in the 60s.
But I mean, but also like be the change, right? Not necessarily.
In the 60s, I
know.
Show that in the 60s meant shut up, Dad. Go ahead.
But I mean, be the positive influence on the negative. Right,
yes.
Be the sun, or what's the phrase? I'll think of it later. But
so here's the deal:
be the moon and inspire people even when you're not full. There you go.
On the chessboard, Mark Zuckerberg is the entire back row of rooks, bishops, king, and queen, and you and I are pawns.
Come at me, bro.
If you're gonna attack, you have to have a huge swarm of pawns. No, this gets to my analogy. A huge swarm of pawns that say, I'm not going to take it anymore. Literally going back to that network movie. Did you ever see that, Andrew?
I think so. It's been a long time, but
Academy Award.
Mad as hell, not going to take it anymore. Yes.
Yeah.
Basically, they were predicting that cable news would become very divisive, and that they would actually show live acts of violence and rile people up, just like the Christians and the Romans in the Colosseum. so much. I mean, it was exaggerated, but so much of what they predicted now would be like it's a documentary, not a story.
But I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, obviously, I'm just one guy and whatever, but, I'm trying to spread joy on this platform that a lot of people have negative perceptions of. So there are plenty of great places. It's on you to be responsible.
Be on there. Yeah, this is what it is today. You have no choice. But I do believe, and this has happened with bands too, that live performance is bigger. Then, like, you can get a lot of views online, and it might help people come see your live performance. So obviously, you have to have your.
Well, there's no streaming money anymore. There's no nothing. Right. It's all in the live show. Yeah. Even Facebook was giving me $1,200 a month, and then they go, you know what? That's too much money. You're going to do this for free, and it's not in our best interest to give you a ton of money.
So there was payola in the beginning to get the records on the station. And then when the records realized they needed the station more than the station needed them, it's the other way around. And that is typical business cycle of art.
I mean, there was a big lawsuit that comedians got together and said, Spotify, we demand more than 0.08 of a cent per spin. And Spotify said, oh, okay, we can just take you off then. That's cool. And a lot of comedians lost $10,000 a month. Yeah, whatever, Pandora, all the stuff. So,
two things about Spotify. Spotify actually, one of the reasons their stock is languishing, and I actually bought some of it because I knew they would be the clear winner. But one of the reasons, and their stock is languishing, is because they don't have a decent profit margin. And the reason they don't have a decent profit margin is they actually, I think, do somewhere between 70 and 75% of their revenue goes to the artists. And but because there are so many now, and anybody can be an artist, you can have a huge apple pie, but if you have to split it up with 200 million people,
it's
gonna be like, what, are you kidding me?
We were joking about $10 hot dogs at the Taylor Swift concert. That's because she's getting all of that money. The stadium isn't. They're making a fine amount of money, but. The guy who owns the building is.
Well, it's the resellers that made all this Taylor Swift money because they priced the tickets, $300, $600, or $1,000 for the floor, and now they're going for up to $10,000. And Taylor Swift doesn't get that. StubHub, Vivid Seats, SeatGeek, those resellers do it, and that's a super complex issue. Boy, I'll tell you. By the way, I know that Keith bought tickets last night, as I mentioned, for Taylor Swift, for Leanna and the Two Girls. I can't wait to find out how much he's paid.
Well, I sent you the screenshot, I think, of the Seattle one, right? Let me see if I can find it. But it was like $1,000
for like a mediocre seat.
Yeah.
So Keith was looking at $600 seats in the nosebleed 20th row of the highest section at Inglewood Stadium. And he was just feeling bad about it. It's like $600 for a horrible seat. And then he looked at, like, for $1,000, the seats were much better because at the end, in the evening of the concert, everybody's trying to buy the cheapest seat possible to get in there. And he was like, oh, should I spend $1,000 a ticket? Oh. And I was like, oh, does Leanne really want to go? And he was like, oh, yeah, she has to go. I said, well, I wouldn't put her in a crappy seat. I said, I know it's irresponsible, but and I'm your father, but I can't tell you what to do. But I know I would waste a bunch of money to keep Lisa happy because she's my cutie.
Floor tickets to the Seattle show, $3,904 each.
Wow. Resale?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And here's the thing: Taylor Swift is doing what, $1 billion on this tour, but I believe the SeatGeek people are doing 4 or 5 additional billion.
I mean, they, provide a service. So
everybody says it's because Taylor Swift is so great, and she is, by the way, for that generation, and it's incredible pop music. I would sure enjoy seeing it the same way I would go to a symphony. It's not something I would put on my
bucket
iPod.
list.
Yes. But it's top of the line, and the problem with Taylor Swift, the reason she's so big, partially, is because unlike the classic rock era, where there were 20 or 30 bands that were that big, there's only one. There's only one pop band of that magnitude. She is the Beatles. She is Elvis. She is Frank Sinatra of this generation. And
Pretty soon to be joined by Andrew Rivers.
All right, tell me more about your special, because we are about to wrap it up.
Oh, funny. Well, it's a big dramatic thing, but I booked 2 nights at a comedy club, and you want redundancy, and most of the time, a lot of my comedian friends tell the story, and they go, "The first night went perfectly, and we don't have to rely. We get to relax. Everything's in the bag. We get to be we get to be loose. We get to have fun. We get to maybe pick up some more shots." And
and most comics do it this way, by the way. They
Yes.
shoot for a couple of nights in a row so that if anything goes wrong, they can pick the better night.
yes, and thank God, because I bombed my face off Friday night when I'm paying a guy about $10,000.
Yeah, it's $100,000. Shut up. Shut up.
I mean,
you comedians, you overshare. It's
Listen.
$600,000 that he had on the line.
well,
Little
it's
mystery is always good
he's
in
giving
showbiz.
he's giving me a great deal. I'll say that, and so it could be he told me his goal was to make it look like $100,000 special. So anyway,
You could complain you wasted $300 and it only looks like $100,000.
yes. So
But by the way, you didn't bomb the first night. You felt bombing, but other people, audience members, I've
Yes.
seen posts, they all said you were great.
So it's interesting. We basically did everything we could possibly do wrong the first night. First of all, it was Seafair weekend, which I totally forgot about. I just look at calendars and I say, that's empty, fill that in. And then, of course, it's one of the hardest weekends to ever sell tickets is when there's like a big thing going on.
Part of the reason is traffic. People don't want to fight the traffic.
Yeah. And so
Let's cut to the chase.
Sure.
You sold out the show.
sure.
Both shows.
Right.
One had a smattering of tickets left, but they were basically sellouts.
Yes. And it's a 120 seat venue, and so the first night we had 115.
Okay, there's
And
too much information. You had
we
50
did not-
people waiting on the outline who
Sure.
couldn't get in. There was a
Yeah.
crowd. The police had to come and break up the crowd. Jeez, I tell you.
Sheesh.
Zip, would you explain puffery? Because
Yeah,
I
yeah,
thought
yeah.
I demonstrated enough puffery for myself, right? But
Here we were talking about the evils of lying on social media, and he's
Evil
going,
lying.
make yourself look
Yeah.
bigger.
Look,
yeah.
P.T. Barnum. Yes.
Comics. What is the story about politicians lie to do something? Comedians lie to tell the truth. Who told me that? Right? Yeah. Have you ever
That's
heard
pretty
that
good. No, I don't. Maybe politicians.
Politicians lied.
Okay,
I
something.
forget.
I get it.
Someone will know what the saying is. And
Sure.
maybe they'll put it in the comments. But you're in the like you're there to entertain people and puff them up and be dramatic.
Yeah.
And just as in a movie, it should be loosely based on real facts.
Right. So there's a
isn't
big crowd, and the fire department gets called. But we turned the AC off for the show because we thought, oh, maybe loud noise. We don't want
Fan
the
noise,
clunky thing. And then when the room is sweltering hot, people just don't laugh really.
Yeah.
So
That was your big problem that night, is that it
Yeah.
was a super hot night in Seattle. And unlike here in Vegas, where we're always bathed in 74-degree air conditioning, this venue probably had used an air conditioner once 3 years ago. And
well, it's getting pretty hot out here nowadays. I mean,
it's- that air conditioner is performing like chitty chitty bang bang.
speaking of chitty chitty bang bang, the
Meanwhile,
global warming.
Andrew's got beads of sweat. I can
Yes.
tell the story better. Let me show
Yes.
you how you should tell your story.
Yes.
And everything, and there's so much to think about because he's hired all these people, and it's a huge crew of people if you've seen the pictures. And meanwhile, someone must have said, probably one of the engineers, an audio engineer, idiot like me, you can't have the AC on; it's going to ruin the sound. right?
Yeah.
And you're like, okay. And then
Yeah.
he turns it off and he's happy. The sound is going to be real good. He doesn't give a shit whether you have a comfortable environment to perform. And so I know you're not saying this because you love those people and you're not being, you want to be nice to them. But then as it gets to showtime and you're sweating and you see the audience is uncomfortable, that made you uncomfortable.
Well, 5 minutes in, I'm getting flop sweat and I'm getting, I can feel the beads dropping down my cheek, which is uncomfortable. and that's only like a few minutes into the show, so, and then I also took an anti-anxiety medication that I have used before, but it had been a long time.
And I never knew to have stage fright, by the way. So that's an I want to delve into that. But as far as the beads of sweat go, let me say this.
Well, I wear a hat, and the hat was a different color by the end of the show.
This is the same thing that ruined Rudy Giuliani's career across from the
I think you didn't have eyeliner on already.
I had my hand in my pants. It was very awkward.
Yeah, I totally get it. You were
the hair
feeling
dye,
it.
yeah.
But here's what you did, and I already know this part of the story because your friends told you this on social media. You rose to the occasion. You just motored on and did your show, and the people that were there had a good time, and they didn't know that you were dying inside.
My friend, when I was a new comic in 2009, he said, when you get good, you can sort of Captain Sullyburger the plane where we're going down, but everyone's going to live. And so, I know how to bomb with grace. Yeah. So everyone had a good time. It was a fine show, but it's not a special. All right. So
sidebar on bombing. I saw one of Keith's favorite comedians, a big LA comic, Eddie Ifft, recently in Vegas, and he and his wife renewed their vows, and he was booked for the weekend at Brad Garrett's Comedy Club, which is one of the most beautiful clubs in the world. And he bombed to himself. It's the first time I've ever seen him. And I thought he was clever. And he started doing that thing that some of you really honest comedians do. He's going like, whoa, this audience. I'm looking out here. I have to tell you, you guys, you're one of the worst audiences I have ever seen. And then if anything started to go wrong with a joke, he would like, that's the IQ problem right there, or whatever. He was going like that. I know that joke kills. He was doing. You do this too sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. They call them saver lines. If you have a thing where you go, I'll insert the laughter later, or.
Well, he did it so much that night that I thought, well, that's his catchphrase. That's really cool.
Fuck you is my catchphrase. Yeah.
And I enjoyed him. I mean, there was enough clever in the years of work he'd done. Putting on the show and being an experienced comic, that I actually asked Keith. I said, did he really mean that about the horrible audience? Keith said, yes, he really did. And he had a horrible time. But he had to Sullenberger it in.
Yes.
Basically.
So you got to...
Yes.
So you practice that when you're doing plane training, right? When you're trying to get your pilot's license, don't you kill the engines and just
kill the engines and see if you would live? That's what it's called, an engine out procedure. But you pull the engines, you look around for a field, and your instructor watches you take the plane, circle around, manage your attitude, and your job is to come in as if for a landing in that field. And only when he knows you would make the field and probably not die, then he says, put the power in. That's exactly right.
Interesting.
So the second night was great.
Yeah, so second night, we moved more chairs closer. We did like table seating up front, and that really limits the amount of people that are like in front of the cameras. And so we also kept the AC on. But anyway, Friday night I get home and I'm miserable. I'm up. I'm anxious. I cannot sleep all night. I'm tossing and turning. I wrote a new closer in the middle of the night.
Did I tell you this was what show business is about, and you were going to suffer like this for your whole life?
And I'm a person who really sleeps in most conditions very well. So it just finally about noon, I gave up and I went to Taco Time. I got a big burrito and I popped 2 NyQuil pills.
Wait a minute. At noon, you gave up trying to go to sleep from the night before.
Yes.
I've done that so many times. you had a burrito, and the burrito,
I had a burrito and a NyQuil, and I said
burrito and a NyQuil.
both of these
That's,
things.
by the way, the name of your next special.
Yeah, NyQuil burrito. Yeah,
Actually, that's a 5-minute album cut. Right there,
it's
burrito.
already been discussed heavily. So
Is this a thing, by the way? Because I confess, I've done this when I have a cold. I go, wow, that really knocks me out. And then sometimes when I don't have a cold and I can't sleep, I go, that would really knock me out.
yeah,
Not a good habit.
not for me. I'm really gifted at being able to sleep well. I sleep on planes. I sleep during your radio show. I sleep during the
Caught a few winks
podcast.
during this podcast.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but I do know of comedians that keep an Ambien handy just because of the time differences, and you're running around and you're on 6 a.m. flights, and it's nasty.
So let's get
for
to
you.
the point because we're coming up. It's exactly an hour now, so we're.
I
done.
got you.
All right,
You're-
that was
you're
great.
giving me-
Thank you.
you're
And it
giving me
all
the
goes
light.
happily ever
He's-
after.
he's giving me the
tell
light.
rest of the story. Just move faster. So you.
So I woke up at 3:30 p.m.
Yeah.
from a little 2-hour nap. I chugged a Red Bull. I got to work, and then all of my friends are at this show. My comedian friends that came out to support me. You called me 10 minutes before the show started, like you knew that I was miserable and pacing back and forth. That fatherly instinct.
I know
he
that's your
needs my
DNA,
pep
but I
talk
didn't know
right
that
now.
For sure, that's what you were feeling. Yeah, yeah.
He needs me. I see the bat signal, and then everything just went, and I forgot to take the anxiety pill because I was in such a rush. And what I learned is that this pill blocks sort of adrenaline, but adrenaline can help you focus also. So, the moral of the story is that I've had the power all along, Dorothy, and I just needed to click my heels.
So it went great the second night, and we're going to hear all that new material when your special comes out. Hello, Beautiful is the name of the special. I'm Bob Rivers. That's Zip Zipfel, and my son, who I'm very proud of, Andrew Rivers. And this concludes this pop-up podcast. We were supposed to interview Jack Douglas this week. And seriously, his wife took a fall, and he had to run to the hospital. That's all I know. So say a prayer for him on that. And he's one of the greatest music producers of all time. And he doesn't know that I have the connection to Aerosmith that I do, through Lisa.
Speaking of someone else trying to steal your woman,
Well,
you stole it from him. There you go. What's good for the goose is good for the gander,
She'd already been left at the Goodwill box. By the time.
You got her at the pound?
At the end of the podcast, she'll never know. So, anyway, all right. We'll try to have Jack next week. In the meantime, I'm headed to a radio convention for 4 days where, last year I went and I was like kind of anonymous. I was just recovering from my cancer.
Now you're a Hall of Fame.
That's right.
I know. And I'm figuring out ways to hide because I'm mostly like having individual
Remember to tell those floozies to back off. I know, I'm sure that they'll be all over you, but
it's funny. Your mother is pretty sure of that too, but and it is because I'm, if I dare say so, I'm polite and charming, but pretty much, except to my flesh and blood. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, it's going to be a fun time, and we'll check back in next week. Everybody take care, be well, and thank you to all the people who said nice things on social media. I didn't know what to say, but
congratulations.
yeah.
Yes. Well deserved.
All right. That phrase, well deserved. Did you also have a father that told you you'd never amount to nothing?
Ditch digger. Yes.
Dick digger. Yeah. I think I did a little better than that, Andrew. I made plenty of mistakes.
No, you were almost too supportive. You were like, comedy's great. You should just live off unemployment and ride that out. The Obama Comedy Scholarship, and then I was on unemployment again, and they were like, it's Trump University, So
That's true. It's actually it's because I love comedy, and I think what you do is actually important to the world changing, as we just discussed.
Absolutely. I think it's one of the most healing things you can do is to not take things too seriously. Really, seriously.
That's a good note.
or you can just say hello, beautiful, to all your ugly friends.
Bob and Zip Show.